Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to our program today. This is your host, Josue Padilla, and we're going to be going through the Bible, and we are happy that you are here today, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to be going through the books of the Bible in this next couple of weeks, and we're going to take it by segment, so don't be discouraged yet. There are 66 books in the Bible, and there are 39 books in the Old Testament and 27 books in the New Testament for a total of 66. But we're not going to go through all of them in one day. We're not going to go through all of them all the way until we finish. Right now, we're going to do the first 5 books of the Bible. And let me see what's going on here, because for some reason my system is muting and I don't know what is going on. But we're going to be going through this first 5 books of the Bible. Is called the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. Penta comes 5. Remember, pentagram, pentagon. That gives you the number 5. And so we're going to be going through the first 5 books of the Bible. And we are going to start from the beginning. And we're going to start with the book of Genesis today. And we hope that you are able to learn something. I know that you, at some point, have probably heard a lot of the Bible characters, but you don't know what is their timing, when, where, around what time of all this time and space it happened. So we're going to try to explain to you little by little about each one of the books. The first 5 books that we're going to be looking at is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those are the first 5 books of the Bible. And today we're going to start with book number 1, which is the book of Genesis, which means beginning. This is the book of beginnings. A lot of the beginnings of everything are established here. And I don't know if you know this, but in the process of the writing of the books, God had instructed the writer of this 5 books, which is the same author, and we'll be going to it in a few minutes. He inspired him to write these books because God was about to establish a new nation, and he wanted them to know their history, their beginnings, who their God was going to be, what he expected from them. So God assigned a writer to write the first 5 books of the Bible in an order of chronology, or in an order of time, so that they could understand the whole process. So today we're going to start with the book of Genesis, which is the book of beginnings, and it is the first book of the Old Testament. Remember, the Bible is divided into Old Testament and New Testament. The Old Testament is basically the story of the nation, and it looks towards Jesus. It looks towards the future. Everything that we find in this following books, you will find things that are related to what was coming in the future. Then the Old Testament becomes the realization of everything that the Old Testament was looking towards. So the writer of the first 5 books of the Bibles and the writer of the book of Genesis is Moses. Moses is the same guy that you will find in the book of Exodus in Egypt. He is the guy that delivered the people of God from the the time of slavery that they had been living in, and we'll go into it when we look into the book of Exodus. But he is the same author of the 5 books. God assigned Moses to write basically the history so that his people would know exactly what God expected of them. So Genesis is written by Moses. So if anybody ever asks you who wrote the book of Genesis, you say Moses. And it was written in around the year 1430 before Christ, about 1,430 years before Jesus, before the birth of Jesus. And so remember that all our history and all our stories are divided from before Christ and after death. So basically, this was written 1,430 years before Christ, and it's covering a period of about 2,000 years. It covers from the year 4004 before Christ all the way to the year 1805 before Christ. That covers that period of about 2,000 years, and it was written by one man, but it covers that much space in the history of the people of God, or in this case, the beginning of the universe, the beginning of earth, the beginning of creation, the beginning of everything. We're not going to get into arguments about creation and about Big Bang theories. We're going to go based on the Bible, because we're looking at the books of the Bible, and we're going to see everything that God had established basically for his people. So now we're going to go now into more information about the book of Genesis, and it's got a couple of claims to fame, or a couple of stories that are the most popular stories or verses in the Bible, and we're going to go through that. But at the first book of the Bible, it covers the longest period of time. All the other books will cover probably a couple of years, a couple of 100 years, but this one covers about 2,000 years. So if anybody ever asks you who wrote the book of Genesis, you say Moses. And if they ask you how many years does it cover, you are going to say about 2,000 years. And most of the stories that are the claim to fame in the book of Genesis are the following stories. There's about 6, maybe 7 of them that I want to talk to you about today. Number 1, in the book of Genesis, you will find the whole history of creation. From chapter number 1 all the way to chapter number 2 and 3, you will find all the beginnings, and you will find the creation in chapter number 1, where one of the main verses and most known verses in the Bible exists, and that is Genesis 1:1, which says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." That is Genesis 1:1. You probably heard it at some point. You probably said it at some point, but that is one of the most famous verses in the book of Genesis. The second story that comes out that is very important, and it's a highlight in the book of Genesis, is the story of Noah's Ark. Basically the story of the great flood, when Noah built an ark in order to save his family and the animals that God instructed him to save, which was 2 of every species. It wasn't 2 of every type of animal. It was 2 of every species. And that was that's the second story that develops in the book of Genesis. Now, number 3, the third story that you probably have not heard as much, it is called the Tower of Babel. And that is the story from which God confused the languages of all humankind, because they were trying to build a tower to basically make it to where God was and be in the level of God. And God said, nope, it's not going to happen. So he went ahead and confused their language, and they were not able to finish the tower because God stopped them from doing so because of the intent of their heart. It's not that building was bad. It's not that trying to create something great was bad. It's that they were trying to take the place of God, and God never shares his glory with anybody. Number 3, you will find the story of Abraham, the father of faith. He is the man who is basically the first guy that believed God for a nation. And God called Abraham, and he said, Abraham, I'm going to make you father of a great nation. And that's where you find the story of Abraham and the journey that he went to be able to become the father of faith. Abraham had a son, and his son's name was Isaac. And Isaac is important in this story because Isaac was going to be sacrificed in a mountain. I don't know if you remember this. He was going to be sacrificed in a mountain because God said, I will test Abraham to see how much he loves me. And he asked Abraham to bring his son up to a mountain to be sacrificed. And you remember that at the time of the sacrifice, God stopped him and said, look, I saw that you love me. I saw that you would trust me. So now I'm not going to ask you to kill your son. I'm going to give you something to present to me in his stead. And Abraham did not have to sacrifice Isaac because his obedience and his love for God helped him understand that God would do anything for him. And he will do the same thing for you if you just trust him. From Isaac, then now we have we have Jacob. Jacob was the son of Isaac. And Jacob is important in our story because Jacob had, let me go ahead and close this off real quick. I have something that came up on my screen. Jacob is the one that sees a ladder coming up from heaven and angels coming down and going up. And he says that was the gate to heaven and a place where he could truly rest. And so Jacob is another important story in this process. And then his name is also changed to Israel in the process, which is where the people of Israel get their name from their father Jacob. So it's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And last, we find Joseph. This is the young boy with the robe of many colors, and he was sold into slavery by his brothers into the nation of Egypt. And that is another one of the most important stories in the book of Genesis. You have to remember that through all this story was so that the people of God would understand what God wanted to do with them and how the nation actually began. Joseph was sent into Egypt, and then he later becomes the prince of Egypt. The second famous verse in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, is found in Genesis 1:27, and it reads as follows. It says, so God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Two genders. God created two genders, males and females. In the book of Genesis 1:27, it's the second most popular verse in the book of Genesis. Even though I mentioned to you a lot of stories, these are the two main verses that you will find in the first book of the Bible. So all of these stories that I just mentioned to you today are covered in a lapse of about 2,000 years, and you will find much more information if you go and read your Bible in the book of Genesis. No matter if you have an actual paperback Bible or if you have it on your phone, I recommend to you that if you want to know more about the beginnings, go to the book of Genesis. The prehistory contains everything from Genesis 1 through Genesis 12. That is basically the beginning of all the things that God wanted the people to know. And then everything until the birth of Abraham is found in chapters 1 through 12. And then in that first part, you cover also the book, the Tower of Babel, and you also cover the Great Flood. And then number 2, from Genesis 12 to Genesis 50, that's where you find the story of all these men that I mentioned to you, all the patriarchs, all the founders of the people of Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they are very important because from them, a new nation is formed. Now, I do want to say this to you. Joseph is not one of the patriarchs, but he becomes a very important part of the story because from him comes the Prince of Egypt, and from there comes the people being free in the book of Exodus to go into the promised land. So I hope you learned something today. I hope you were able to hear this and understand it and enjoy it. And thank you for being here with us. We ask you that if you like this video and you feel like sharing it with somebody that could learn something from the book of Genesis, that you share this. Don't forget to hit like and that little bell. It helps the algorithm and it helps us to get more viewers into this channel. So thank you for being here. We wanted to share this with you. Don't forget that we were coming from the book of Genesis, and next time we will be going over the book of Exodus. So thank you very much for being here. My name is Josue Padilla. We'll see you guys next time.